Happy New Year everyone, how you doing? So today we are dipping our foot into the well of philosophy by talking about the first Greek philosopher Thales of Miletus. Thales of Miletus, who was born around 624 BC in Ionia in Asia Minor, distinguished himself from other intellectuals at the time by asking questions about the origins as well as the guiding principles of the world. But instead of trying to find the answers in mythology, Thales instead relied on empirical observations as well as data he collected himself to try to find the arche, which basically translates to origin of the world. But let's talk about his life first and his philosophy second. Like I said, Thales was born around 624 BC in Miletus in Ionia, and even though there are conflicting statements about his exact parentage, it is basically accepted that he was born into a somewhat distinguished family, which probably granted him access to a certain kind of education as a kid. During his lifetime, he visited Egypt, particularly to learn more about mathematics and geometry. There are several stories of him using his own theories to not only prove that philosophy can be useful to gain personal wealth, for example by predicting the weather in a way that he could profit off buying olive presses in a year which he predicted to have exceptionally good weather, but also to settle certain political disputes by advocating against warfare and for agreements with mutual benefits between two parties. Unfortunately, there's not that much else known about his life, since historians rather try to focus on his philosophy later on. The last information there is hints at his death around 547 in his mid-70s when he died of a heat stroke. But let's get to his work during his lifetime. Thales was an accomplished mathematician, astronomer and philosopher in his time. He was able to predict an eclipse happening in 585 BC and describe the position of the stellar formation Ursa Minor. He also has some fame in the world of math, introducing the Thales and the intercept theorem. However, the field that we are interested in is philosophy. So what did the first Western philosopher bring to the table? Well, like I have hinted at in the beginning of this video, Thales' philosophy rests mostly on the question of the origin and guiding principle or arche of the universe, without having to resort to mythological explanations. It is quite possible that he was influenced by the Sumerian mythology of the ancient Near East though, as he came forth with the notion that water is the primal reason of the world. His reasoning is handed down to us by Aristotle and other later philosophers, since Thales himself either did not write anything he set down, or no scripture of him has survived. He rests his assumption for water to be the arche, the substance from which everything comes, mainly on the observation that everything around him is, in some part, water. He called this the wetness of things, and noted that water can easily shift its form from liquid to solid and gaseous, and therefore had some sort of all-encompassing properties. His train of thought is more understandable considering that he also thought anything liquid to hold water, and since even things like iron could be melted down to be a liquid, he associated it with water as well. He also observed the seeds of plants to be watery and concluded that water is the key element to life and formation itself, which made it, according to him, the key substance for existence. He applied this theory to his cosmology, where he postulated that the planets, stars, and Earth were swimming in a primordial ocean, out of which solid matter like the planets could have also been formed. And even though this notion might seem weird, the questions and answers he put forth in an attempt to explain the world around him were groundbreaking for later philosophical thought, and the first step to separate mythology from philosophy or natural sciences being done with the help of observations and evidence and not trying to come up with an explanation seemingly out of nowhere. Thales would, using his methods of observation and developing theory, start a journey that spawned hundreds of different philosophers and schools of thought, including his own, some of which I might cover in future videos. Until then, I hope you'll have a nice time, may the gods be with you, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.